And we're back to continue to part two, the second half of this interview with our brother Lee Muhammad. And you've heard how he came to the Nation of Islam. You heard about the questions that the teachers of the Mosque Elijah Muhammad answered, and you heard how he came to become the student minister there in Fort Worth. And he gave powerful testimony about some of the lessons that he has learned. So I want to ask you this question, Brother Lee, because I came across this on social media. Can you share with us what you know about the history of the Nation of Islam there in the city of Fort Worth, Texas, from any previous ministers, captains, or anything that you know? Because I came across this video that they have online.
All praise due to Allah. Well, brother, first of all, that brother that you just showed, that's Minister Clifton.
Mm.
Okay. And that the mosque that they filmed that in was Masjid Hassan. Okay. That's actually in, they say it's from Dallas, right? But it's actually
Mm-hmm.
was in Fort Worth. And he was there to do that interview. And Bob Ray Sanders was the brother at the beginning of the video with the afro. He wrote for the Star Telegram for many years. He went to the same school with many of our elders in the mosque right now. Okay. Uh, but I do, if I can share with you, we have when people come to Fort Worth, we have a printout that we give them about a brief history of Fort Worth in our city. And there's a sister, her name was Alice Fatima Hassan. And I can't read all of this, but she came in 1954. Okay. And she was actually the first person in Texas to actually establish Islam in Texas. It was a sister, believe it or not. And she says we had our meetings every other Sunday in Dallas. I
Mm.
went back to Chicago in 1955. And when
Mm.
the teachings was over, they asked if anyone had a question. She asked for some help. Okay. I told them I was from Fort Worth, Texas, where she
Mm.
was from. I was the only one there from Texas, and they gave me a big hand. The messenger told me I was a long way from home and how cruel the devil was here in Texas.
Mm.
Messenger Elijah Muhammad said I would get help. Later, my son Ernest Pasha and his wife Betty Pasha moved down here from Detroit. She goes on to say, Minister Clyde X taught at a church in Fort Worth and one in Dallas in 1956. He and his wife were lots of help. We took in a few members. By this time, we had quite a few people. The devil had us on television. Now that what you just showed is what they're talking about. The devil had us on television, right? And one of our black Christian brothers told the police sergeant that if he could get anyone to support him, the Muslims wouldn't last as long as a snowball in hell. The sergeant said there was nothing he could do. The police sergeant said, you watch them to see how fast they will grow. He was talking to Dennis Flemings, a head of the NAACP, who died in a rest home. From 1954 to 1956, we taught Islam in my home at 5501 Eisenhower Drive, which is where our great brother Ernest and sister Abby lived. And they had a son named Brother Eric who passed away about 2 years ago. But that's where they had their meetings on 5509 Eisenhower Drive. In Dallas, we taught Islam in my son's brother Charles' shoe shop. We had two to join there, brother Will Fables and sister Lucille. We soon found a place in Fort Worth, 1411 Lancaster. Shortly thereafter, we moved to a bigger place, 1327 Lancaster. In Dallas, we moved to 2526.5 Florida Street. In 1959, we merged with Dallas. We had 16 hardworking sisters and many brothers. Now, eventually, beloved, um, Dallas, of course, Dallas and Fort Worth broke off, and Dallas became 48. Fort Worth became 52. She said, I had to go back to Chicago in 1959. The messenger told me to sell dinners to non-Muslim lost friends. He said they liked the food. Sister Clara Muhammad gave me a food list and she fixed the lunch. The messenger gave me his blessings that we would have a temple in Texas. So that's how it got started by Sister. We call her Sister Alice. We call her Mother Alice, but she was Sister Alice, and she was the one that went to Chicago to get help for people to come down to Texas and establish Islam in the great Lone Star State of Texas. And so
Yeah.
anybody that knows Dallas and Fort Worth, we twin cities actually, and about 30, 40 minutes apart. But we still work well together, and that was the history prior to 75. On this side of Calvary, of course, we had Brother Vincent, who was a study group leader when I was in Dallas. When I moved to Texarkana, Brother Darrell